Are there any what we would call mindset shifts that have happened with you guys since you started investing? I I could give you some examples of mine to get us started, maybe. And I think about things like we talked a few minutes ago about things like the interest rate, and it being for investors right now. The last couple of qualifications that I did, one was 7, like last week, and this week it's 7.5. And I think it doesn't bother me because the deals that we're looking at still cash flow as much as we need them cash flow. Like, we have basic requirements. For example, we like to get at least $200 positive per door and 10% cash on cash return. So if you can still get that with the 7.5% interest rate, that all works. But before, I would have thought, with rates going up, I'm not even going to think about it because it's going to be so expensive to buy a place. So that was one of the things that I realized. And the other one is maybe a mindset, and part of the learning process is just that I always thought I was getting in to whatever good thing was happening at the time. I was getting in too late and all the good was already gone. And, I just got the tail end of it. But with lending, I have learned over the last couple of years that, every week a new program comes out. So one ends and you're depressed because you missed your shot or whatever. But this week there's something new that's going to help investors keep on going. So that's been a big one for me to not have that happen every time I miss an opportunity. And then the last thing for right now is missing out on a deal, So when we first started out, I kept thinking like I would procrastinate a little bit too long, and then the property went under contract, and that kept happening. And I'm thinking, man, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to get a property. But that isn't the case. There's always a deal next week or the week after that. You just have to be a little bit patient and not get discouraged, because it just seems like no matter what the circumstances are out in the world, there's always going to be something for us to buy. Do you, Jason, had you had any mindset shifts in your journey so far?
Just say my saving habits have gotten better. I would say, with the idea mentally that I could buy something sooner. That was pretty much it. It's been going well. I'm still waiting for something to go wrong that hasn't yet, because it seems like it's going too well. But I'd say that's it. Nothing else I should think of, at least.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, Mikey, you talked about that a little while ago about waiting for something to go wrong. Besides that, are there any other mindset shifts that have happened for you?
Yes, Zuber has talked about it where, the way I looked at my job, it was I felt like I've hit my ceiling at my job. And he kind of made me see it in a different way, where now I look at it as it's a really good funnel for me, because I can use the savings from my paychecks to now, funnel it towards real estate. And having real estate, being able to kind of talk with everyone, I'm learning, how to network better, learning, how we communicate with each other, and trying to learn different, going to the boot camps and the courses. And it's actually allowed me to kind of grow this other part of myself. So I like that aspect of it, where it feels like even though I've hit the ceiling at my job, I can grow in different ways through real estate. And that's what I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good ways to think. How about you, Cody? Mindset. I think out of the four of us, even though you started about the same time we did, you just seem to have gone through so much more than we have. And your experience, the first time we started talking, it just felt like you've been doing this forever. And, you had all these different things you had done as far as different ways of buying properties and things like that. What mindset shifts have you realized over the last few years?
Yeah, I think the first one being sometimes you go through like a personal cycle. So when you first start out, you think you can just keep going to the next property, the next property, the next property. And what you soon realize is like you got to stabilize first before you can keep going. So it was interesting for me where it was like instead of just the exponential growth, you just have to buy a couple, stabilize, make sure they're good to go, and then able to buy some more, then make sure those are stabilized. And so it just takes longer than you think is probably like the biggest thing. Um, it's shorter than the traditional, retirement, you know, age rate, 60, 65, somewhere in that range, 30 plus years for, myself starting at like, around 30. But it does take a while. So then you kind of go through those personal cycles where you got to stabilize, if you have a couple bad months where you didn't have rent coming in or you had vacancies or evictions or something like that, you just got to take the time in order to do those. So that was definitely one of that one. And the other one is kind of stick to what you know is probably the next one that I learned, because I went from doing, just traditional long-term rentals in my immediate area to wanting to maybe branch out and do some other things. And what my kind of thought process has been now in the last couple months is go back to basics, do what you know, and that's going back to the long-term rentals and just focus on that, try not to break that focus. Shiny object syndrome is real, so keep the focus and do what you're good at and what you put the time in to do, and kind of eliminate the rest. So we sold some stuff off this year to kind of do that and focus on what our original plan was. So I think that's helped keep that focus.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. I think stabilization and optimization, I think they would have come around eventually, but it was kind of pounded into us by the lumberjack. And when we first bought all our stuff, I was like, you buy it and wait for the checks to start coming in. But there are things you got to do to make sure they come in, make sure you're not spending too much money at first to, all of our stuff is run by property managers since it's all out of state. So that's been a great lesson and should have been something I concentrated on right away, right? You get the property and you stabilize it like tomorrow, next year. So that was something that I did wrong. And then you also mentioned picking a strategy, because when we first started out, and I guess, again, I don't want to harp on my age, but we needed something to get something rolling like right away, right? And in the beginning, you're looking at flipping and wholesaling and short terms and midterms and all this stuff. And I think it was Zuber that finally made me realize you just pick one thing and just do it, And once I did that, we were able to, it helped us move forward more quickly instead of, how much money is it going to take me to buy this place and flip it, and can I do it from out of state and things like that. So that was a great point too. Something that you guys mentioned was waiting for something to go wrong. I think I had that thought recently, and like the other day, probably 2 weeks ago, we bought one place and had a new roof and did some work inside, and it's just going just great. And I was thinking, okay, when's it going to hit the fan? And then I got a call that the tenant reported a roof leak, and it was the place that just got a roof. So I'm like, okay, but I think that would have been hard to handle or harder to handle if that was our only rental, right? But since we have 7 other doors, even in the worst case, if half the roof had to be redone or something weird like that, those would have helped us absorb that immediate cost. But it was just a simple thing, a tree branch pierced the roof and the roofer went out right away and replaced the shingles, and it was all good. Again, I think the faster you jump in, and whether it's 2 or 3 rentals that you accumulate, those are going to help, even if one's vacant for a month or two, right? The other ones, if you bought them right, they have a little bit of positive cash flow, it's going to help pay that mortgage. So I think as far as the rental aspect of our life, waiting for something to go wrong is now it's kind of something we kind of chuckle at, like, okay, we got to put out a little bit of money, but it's already covered because you're saving for repairs and maintenance out of each deal. And then one other interesting thing that we talked about this morning was because Cynthia's thinking next year will be her last year teaching. And so we were figuring out once everything that we have is finally stabilized, and I think we just have 2 properties that we still need to concentrate on. But the cash flow, say if the cash flow was going to be $3,000, and I think she was figuring we needed $2,000 to replace her income, $2,000 a month. And it was really tight there, but by the time she does retire, we'll have a few more rent increases and things like that. So, it will be even better by the time she stops working. And she has a couple of reasons that she wanted to go one more year, but that's going to help us as far as her W-2 income as well, purchasing a few more before she does stop working. So that was kind of cool to, and we've talked before about finding your number that you can retire at. And if it's $5,000 a month, and you think I need 30 units to cover that 5,000, but you get underway, and in 5 to 10 years, the ones that you buy are going to mature and the rents are going to increase. So, in 5 to 10 years, you might not need 30 anymore. Maybe you just need 15 or 20. So that was, I guess, a mindset shift for me, because you only need 30 if you buy them all right now. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I talked a little bit earlier about financial literacy and just the language. I think one of the people in the group recently who's new to our group, Dennis, was mentioning just the language of, the real estate investing community, and how at first it was kind of daunting, right? Because people tell you, go talk to a lender, go talk to an agent, different things like that, but you feel kind of insecure because you don't know the language, and they might tell you something and you just agree and walk away when you don't really understand it. And now you're challenging them. Hey, wait a minute, that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? That's not what Dion said. You better check yourself. So I think that's been and even me talking to you guys today is like, I don't know, we're all in it. We all understand everything that we're talking about, along with the financial literacy. It wasn't just about the real estate investing, like I mentioned earlier. It's just in general about when you're planning your journey, you're thinking about insurance, and Dion says he's got one rental that covers his insurance and things like that. One rental that covers the payment on his truck, and one property that does cover something else. So it's kind of fun to look at it that way. So we know, Jason, you got a 4-plex. Mikey, what does your portfolio look now?
Yes, the 2 single family rentals
In Pittsburgh.
in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Okay. And Cody, what are you at right now?
I have 13 units, and 6 of those are duplexes, and then 1's family.
And you were talking earlier, or maybe last week, about pictures are under property management as well.
What?
And property management being a little bit of an issue. So you're switching half your portfolio over to another company.
Yep. So we're planning on switching, here the next couple of months to a different one. Kind of compare, how each do business, and kind of go from there. Then hopefully that'll, help stabilize things even more, and hopefully get to the optimizing level. So, that's kind of what we're thinking, and hopefully that'll work out, and either move one way or another from there.
And Jason, you decided to take on property management yourself for now?
Yes. Yeah, me and Thumbtack, basically. I've used them a lot so far, which is good. It actually works out well.
Oh, good. What kinds of things have you used them for?
Plumbing, and I had all of the bathtubs reglazed, so I had a company do that.
Okay.
Those two are
Okay. What did the tub reglazings cost you, if you don't mind?
$380 a tub because he gave me like a discount because I did all 4 at the same time.
Okay. Was that, how much of an inconvenience was that for the tenants?
2 days they can't use the tub,
Uh-huh.
but he was only in the unit for 2 to 3 hours maybe, and then done. But it's got to dry, so they can't use the tub for 48 hours.
That's good. And Mikey, you have property management.
Yes. And trying similar to Cody, where, trying 2 separate ones, seeing how it goes, and then try to evaluate after a year, maybe.